I'm Monica Evans-Loan, NAGAP's Executive Director, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, Unleashing the Power of Virtual Recruiting Fairs. A few housekeeping notes for today before we get started. In the upper right-hand corner of your computer screen, you'll see your control panel. In the lower portion, you can type questions or comments to submit to the organizers for today at any time during our presentation. We'll reserve about 10 minutes at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. So we'll be doing that all towards the end, kind of monitoring that as we go. And if you're unable to get to all of your questions during the allotted time for today, we'll be happy to respond to those in writing. The webinar presentation slides, the link to the live webinar, and the questions and answers that may not be handled during the webinar will be posted on the website in the near future. So today's webinar will address how admissions teams are finding value in the opportunity to connect in a virtual way while saving time and eliminating the many burdens and costs associated with travel. Today you'll learn more about unique ways to educate prospective applicants about your programs while maximizing your resources, find out how virtual affairs work, best practices on how to optimize the virtual recruiting venue, and success stories of virtual affairs strategies. So I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. We have Kevin Zalanowski. He's Admissions and Student Affairs Coordinator at Northwestern University. Holly Wilbanks, the principal at Wilbanks Consulting Group, and Gayle Oliver-Plath, CEO at CareerEco Virtual Fairs. Kevin is the Admissions and Student Affairs Coordinator for Northwestern University Physician Assistant Program. It's located downtown Chicago, Illinois. He has held admissions role at the University of Iowa, University of Michigan, and most recently at Northwestern University, where he's been since 2012. He's introduced and incorporated virtual recruitment initiatives in each position, including CareerEco's virtual graduate fairs at the University of Michigan and Northwestern University. Kevin has been published by the Journal of College Admissions for his work on incorporating instant messenger into graduate recruiting efforts and continues to elevate and build interactive technologies to broaden admissions and yield strategy. Holly is the founder and principal of Wilbanks Consulting Group, a Houston-based firm bringing together innovation and strategy in talent, project, and event management consulting. Prior to starting the Wilbanks Consulting Group, Holly honed her skills in leading organizations in the U.S. and abroad as an expert in recruitment, consulting, professional development, and event management. Her prior positions include roles with McKee Nelson, Hydrogen Group, and Baylor College of Medicine. Holly has served as president of BioGap, the medical sciences chapter of NAGAP, and in 2014, Holly received the Visionary Award from NAGAP for her development of Biomed Virtual Graduate Recruitment Fair. Gayle Oliver-Plath, founder and CEO of CareerEco, is an entrepreneur with 25-plus-year history in recruiting, career services, and business startups. In 2009, Gayle launched CareerEco, a virtual fair recruiting platform and virtual event solution serving more than 500 colleges and universities, as well as diverse entrepreneurial and global organizations through the nation and around the globe. As former CEO of XCUM, Gayle's background includes multi-diversity recruiting, resume writing, and career coaching. Gayle is the author of a resume building book and CD-ROM. As a career expert and forerunner in the virtual college events, Gayle has been frequently interviewed and quoted in media including CNN, Wall Street Journal, Atlanta Journal and Consulting, WSB-TV, WXIA-TV, and various radio programs. An experienced presenter, Gayle has spoken about the trends in virtual career fairs and graduate school fairs at NACE, SOACE, Midwest ACE, Midwest Trends, NAGAP, and SHRM. Gayle is a cum laude graduate from the University of Georgia with a BA in psychology. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Holly to begin today's presentation.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Monica, and thanks to everyone who's joining us today. Before we delve into best practices and maximizing your ROI and the other really interesting things that we're going to talk about in terms of these innovative virtual recruitment fairs today, we wanted to give you a quick background on sort of how this webinar came about and what virtual fairs really are. So this webinar came about kind of going all the way back to 2012 when the BioGap chapter came together and did the first Biomed Virtual Graduate School Recruitment Fair. And that was really a special interest fair that I helped organize through the BioGap chapter of NAGAP for students who were interested in biomedical graduate education in an effort to connect the programs, the institutions, and the potential candidates in a way virtually that they had never connected before. From that, the NAGAP and NAGAP chapters heard about the success of the BioGap groups fair, and they said, you know, potentially we could do this for a regional fair or a geographic fair. And so from that, the, excuse me one second. Here we go. From that, the Northeast Grad School Virtual Fair was born, and that was in an effort for those chapters to recruit students interested in graduate professional programs in that region of New England and New York. And through the success of these chapter collaborations, NAGAP was interested in serving its members through some other potential events. So there will be 2 events coming up this fall for the first time ever that are being organized through NAGAP. One is an education recruitment virtual fair, and the other is an engineering recruitment virtual fair. So what really is a virtual fair for those who may have never been exposed to this before or really have no idea what this is? It really is a single or multi-institution recruitment fair that connects potential applicants with the programs that they're interested in online. And it really connects the idea that so many of the applicants and candidates that we as graduate educators are trying to reach are online, and that's where the majority of their research takes place. Through a virtual fair, institutions can showcase their schools, their colleges, their programs, and all their key differentiators by displaying essentially multimedia content through an event site. They can engage prospects in real time, on demand, in a way through live chat rooms, using group chat, and also doing one-on-one communications with these potential candidates, where you also have the opportunity to do video communications or a broadcast to a group of candidates via video or radio, whatever your preference would be. From there, you get the opportunity to capture the candidate's data, the discussion transcripts of everything that you discussed with them that day in the virtual event, and the attendance reports for both the candidates and the applicant tracking, which you can then, translate to your CRM systems and all of your future marketing pipelines and things like that. So that is, in general, what a virtual fair is. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin, who will share his experience with you first.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. I'm part of Northwestern University. I represent the physician assistant program. I think it's very helpful to understand a little background about our program and then the landscape that we operate in when we're evaluating whether or not to try a new sort of recruitment tool. So we're a 24-month health science graduate program resulting in a master's degree. We require work experience before an applicant can enroll as part of the admissions process. Because of that emphasis on previous work experience, our average age of an incoming student is in the mid-20s, although our range comes right out of undergrad up into 40s and 50s. We're highly selective. Every year, one time per year, we enroll 30 students into our full-time program. So far this year, we have 2,300 applications, so we're going to go way over that, both in progress and complete apps. So high volume. We get applicants from every U.S. state. And one thing I'll mention later, too, is because our applicants have been working for a little bit, a lot of times our top applicants are no longer at their undergraduate institution. And that's an important thing I'll mention on the next slide. Top applicants are invited to a mandatory interview, and to coordinate all of this is one admissions and recruiting staff member, which is me. So again, time, resources are important when we're evaluating new recruitment strategies. Within PA programs, there are 196 accredited programs in the country. Our yield is very good. I know this is envious for different programs in different areas, 50 to 66% yield, but you know, it's going to be a competitive market regardless of what your yield is. And so this is simply where we are, but in previous programs I've been at, when we've used this very technology, yield numbers were very different and the results were just as encouraging. So let's jump to the next slide. When I'm looking at a program or a new strategy to use, I want to make sure I'm able to recruit the best applicants. In some way, does this new technology or this new effort help me do that? We're looking for working professionals in the healthcare areas, but regardless of location. And that's an important topic because with the number of applicants that I get, I have difficulty justifying additional recruitment dollars to travel. Even though I know that there are these great applicants at different parts of the country, or they're here locally and they work and time gets eaten up and they're unable to get here to campus. And so regardless of location, whether they're near or far, being able to interact with them, especially in real time, is really important. I have to be cognizant that my strongest applicants are likely a few years removed from their undergraduate institution. So simply going to undergraduate schools to recruit may or may not be highly effective. Certainly it can start the pipeline and get our program in their mindset if they plan on enrolling in PA school in 2 or 3 years. But I want to get to them right around the application cycle or during it too. I want to be able to reach out across multiple categories of diversity, not just ethnicity, but geography, gender, and a variety of patient care work experiences too. Always with an awareness for cost and resources. I also like to identify recruitment tools that have a potential synergy. And what we mean by that is what you get as an outcome is greater than the sum of the individual parts. And so is this new initiative going to complement or enhance an existing effort? In this case, for virtual fairs, can I use that tool to boost my attendance or interest in attending other online events or other information sessions? Or when I recruit at some other undergraduate institution, can I drive people to that in-person meeting? Any new initiative is going to add work. So will it also eliminate work? And if it's only going to add, just how much? And we want to be careful that we're not sacrificing what we currently do because that's probably not going to go away. And then not only am I impacted positively by participating in an event, but do the applicants get something out of it too? And each of these bullet points, I have to say after doing virtual fairs for about 3 or 4 years, the answer is yes to these. They work out very positively. So for the next one, the next slide, you'll see the benefits that I've seen over the course of the years here while I've been at Northwestern comparatively. I think it's a great place to start is the cost, especially when we look at cost comparisons when I recruit at a distance outside of Chicago. Now again, my end values are small here because with the number of applications we get, I can't justify making a lot of long distance recruitment trips. But for the ones that we do outside of the city, you can see here the average cost that we have, the average number of individuals I interact with, and the cost per interaction along with the range. Then compare that against the virtual fairs. And in those 4 events in 2014 and 2015, the average cost is steady because we can predict that cost. We buy into this resource, this service. The average interactions is almost double, and the cost is almost half per interaction. And so that's kind of that synergy that we can look at getting. The logistics of traveling are very much negated. I can literally be in my office doing work right up until when I'm going to sign into the virtual room. I can even set that up and make sure there are no technology issues and step away as people come in and our actual meeting time gets closer, and then I can be in the room, and when my time schedule is done for the day or for the event, I just go right back to my office and back to my work. All of that time lost in traveling, it's not an issue for these fairs. It's important to know that you can connect with an applicant differently. And in the world of social media and online everything and millennials and Web 2.0 technology, being able to connect with them in different ways can really help what you do traditionally. And so if you think about a virtual graduate fair, everything that we went over in the first couple of slides here, it sounds kind of like a traditional recruitment fair, just with this upgrade of technology that breaks down the barriers of distance and cost. And do I have free time to attend and travel to a specific location? And so as long as we can make that jump from what we do traditionally to keeping the same concepts but through a different medium, you're going to understand where there actually is a value to participating in these events. I thought it was a unique idea that when we're at a virtual room or in a traditional room, at a gymnasium or an auditorium or just a classroom talking to a group of students, that audience is captive. Maybe they're engaged and maybe they are not. But in the virtual room, it's dynamic. It's always changing. Both the questions that are displayed, the answers that are displayed, and the names of the individuals in your room is always changing. The walls of a physical space are no longer the confines. It's a virtual room where anybody in the country, and quite frankly, probably the world, can log in and participate in your event. Simultaneously, it's an individual interaction through the one-on-one conversations. It's a group interaction where everybody can read everything. And there's not like a traditional fair where you have a single table and 1 or 2 representatives, and there's yelling, there's crowds, there's noise, there's table space being taken up by brochures or people. That all doesn't happen. You can do a lot at the same time through one of these virtual fairs. And I think that's important. I mean, the more fairs or the more attendees, school-wise, program-wise, that are attending, sure, that can be viewed as a competitive marketplace. But from the applicant's perspective, the registrant's perspective, the more schools and programs that participate in an event, the more attractive that event is. And that can be beneficial. I read all the time in our surveys that we do independently after the event that my school maybe wasn't on their radar, but they popped in just because they were copying and pasting the same question against a bunch of different schools. They learned more about my program, and now I am on their radar. And that's one of those ways where you connect with someone differently, and it can fuel what you do traditionally. So our next slide are the ways that my school has benefited by participating. As an admissions professional, how do we benefit? Well, the whole environment, you have genuinely interested attendees in your room. The registration process, at least through the vendor we use, allows an applicant or a registrant to designate that they are interested in your program, but sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But regardless, they are coming into your room, they are seeking you out to ask questions or just watch the conversation. There's an ease of interaction here, both on the administrative side on my end and on the applicant's end. It's easy to interact with someone in a virtual world, especially when you just see names. You don't have to actually physically go up to someone and interact and talk to them. It's just easier, I think, for this generation of applicants. And then they can leave and go ask the same questions of another room if they want. A room greeting, as simple as that sounds, you can use it to drive attendees to various parts of your website, let them know of upcoming events. Thanks for participating in today's event. Just so you know, we have an information session next week or in a month. You can have various audiences participating on you as the program or the school's end, not just admissions staff, but faculty along with current students. And you can make your experience in your room as unique as you'd like. Holly started off by going through a list of features, and Gayle will later, of things that you can do. And like any technology, you want to pick 2 or 3 things that resonate with you and you want to use and do them really well. And there's a lot of features that you can pick, whether it's web links, webcams, or any sort of video or audio technology that you'd like to use. And then the reports at the end are great because I always like to evaluate how good the event was, not just from my side, how many people came through and where were they from, but also on the applicant's side. I do my own survey where I let them tell me how well we did. And that's important, and all of this data is just there for you to draw on. For the applicant, cost and convenience. It's free. They don't have to travel. It's a technology and medium that they are familiar with. Instant access to information, of course. Instant is a big name, a big word with the millennial generation. So web links, you can get them to that careers section of your website. You can get them to student profiles just by copying and pasting the link. And then applicants participate how they want to and their comfort level. You're not making this environment really for them. They are coming and going as they want. Quickly, they can get the information that they want, and they can ask questions if they want as well. Their conversation can be passive, and just because they're staying in the room and watching that conversation or scrolling around and reading previous questions, that doesn't mean they're not engaged. They certainly are. They're learning by being a part of the room, whether they're asking questions or not, and they can instantly become an active participant. The applicant is educated just by participating and being in the room, and we've saved them time and money by creating this virtual space. So best practices. And this is just the next slide. Setting up the room, one of the great things about the registration process is that I can get reports of people who have already signed up. I can see if they've set an interest in my school. And the day before, 2 days before, I send them an email. And I say, we're looking forward to interacting with you in the virtual fair room. This is something very quickly you can do on your end to make the event you experience a better one. It's hard to do that with a traditional graduate fair. So that kind of proactiveness will benefit. Also, remember that you can set your hours in a virtual room. If I want to be on 2 hours a day, or if I want to be on for 7 or 8 hours a day, that's possible. Very, very easy, though, to make a positive impression by being there and interacting. It's also very easy to make a negative impression by not being there. So just be aware that whatever hours you would set for a virtual fair, you commit to them, just like an appointment or an information session. Inside the room, greet people. Set the tone. The staff here at the PA program, me and one of my other coworkers, we're positive, we're enthusiastic, sometimes a little random. You can see here, we like to know like how it's a national whatever day. One of the days we participated in was National Jelly Bean Day. Earlier this month, it happened to be National Give Something Away Day, and so we would greet people every now and again. They come in. We're giving away free advice and admissions information for the PA program, and it kind of breaks the barrier of, should I interact or not? Is someone real there or not? You engage that person, and whether they engage back is up to them. If you do have multiple questions going on at the same time, it's always helpful to begin your response with the person's first name or some identifier with their handle, their screen name, and be careful with copy and paste. For set questions like what's your minimum GPA or when's your application deadline, obviously copy and paste is fine, but sometimes questions can lose their authenticity or their personalized nature if you're just copying and pasting. One of our, just going to the tone that you set and the energy that you can bring even into a virtual space, the feedback we got on one of our surveys, most of it, the majority, is aimed at our staff, how we were good moderators. We answered questions in an individual and quick way, and the room was a little fun. That came up more than a couple of times in the fair we did earlier. And so that's up to you, however you want to run the room. Now, best practices after the event, really to the next slide, tied to reports. And personally, the vendor that we use here provides great reports that I can download, whether it's transcripts or registrants, and really it replaces the need for recruitment cards in any event if you still use those. A really interesting chart here that I put together. These numbers are based on 4 virtual graduate fairs, 2 events per year, or 2 events per year for those that are listed. You can see the number of unique interactions I have, and I wouldn't build too much. You know, if the next one we have a bunch of people, this trend, it's a very small end value, but still very high quality interactions because you're in this space where it's not awkward to interact. And for the people that we survey, very high response rates, okay, in that virtual environment. Millennial students and applicants are not afraid to tell you what you did right or wrong in an event, and this is valuable feedback. So I have nice response numbers to the number of people I interacted with in the event. The number I think that's really important, as a participant, are you more likely to apply? And you can see the numbers, our percentage at least has gone up over the years, but anywhere between 85 and 92, 95% are either going to apply anyway, or they're more likely to apply having participated in this event. And finally, the people that you're interacting with just at a graduate fair may or may not be interested in the current cycle. And so there's a good percentage of individuals that might be in high school or various years of undergrad, and they're looking ahead. Not everybody you talk to is interested in the current cycle. I'd really encourage you to have your own survey so you can collect your own data. Open-ended feedback is very important, especially if you need to justify continued participation in events like this. A great piece of feedback we got from the fair we did last week, Northwestern's PA program was on our radar. One reason, because it was in Chicago, that was it. But after attending the fair, this person was more certain that they wanted to apply to the school. The staff were helpful in answering questions about every aspect of the program. They're planning on getting their app in as soon as possible. I hope I get an interview. Thank you for participating. I get that a similar response to this many, many times. Finally, on the next slide is yield. I like to do these sessions with an eye on what's the ultimate outcome. You can see here for the year, the calendar year of 2013 and 2014, for that cycle of our application, we got plenty of applicants. We also had plenty of people right there in the middle column, 255 and 348, of people that came into the virtual fair room or at least registered to participate in our room. The number that applied is very healthy. 53, 54 per year of the people I interact with in the virtual fair room apply. The interview, VFP-IVED, is interviewed. We only, that's 10, 12% of my interview pool I interact with over this medium. And we've admitted a couple, and we've had a couple turn us down, but definitely some enroll. And so by participating in this event, you're definitely making a connection with your top applicants, or at least some of them. So I hope this was helpful. I'll turn it over to Holly here with some more of the logistics about getting the most out of these events.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Really appreciate it. So Kevin just shared with you his experience as one school participating in a larger collaborative fair. And what I'm going to share with you is my experience as a fair organizer, organizing a collaborative fair, and my expertise on maximizing your ROI so that if you decide to do a virtual recruitment fair, either as a single institution or participating in a larger collaborative fair, you can really sort of maximize your return in terms of enrollment numbers. So when I was putting together the Biomed virtual recruitment fair back in 2012, I did it because I knew a bunch of my friends in corporate had been recruiting virtually through virtual recruitment fairs for large companies like Accenture and PricewaterhouseCoopers and companies like that. And I thought to myself, you know, if they can recruit working professionals online, I think graduate programs should be doing that online as well to connect with potential applicants. So I also did not want to go it alone. I felt, having done collaborative events before, that we would be getting a larger return if we collaborated with sort of our competitor schools or even our sister schools within our biomedical special interest area. And that's what led me to organizing the fair through the Biomed chapter, or the BioGap chapter of NAGAP. And so literally, I sent out an email to my colleagues to engage them, to invite them to participate, said Baylor College of Medicine would love to do this virtual recruitment fair. Here's the information I've researched on different vendors. Here's why I think we should go with this one. And are you interested? Let me know. And from there, I had an excellent response rate. We ended up getting several schools together that first year, and I think we had over 20 schools participate that very first year. So that was extremely exciting. And in the end, it did end up giving us more applicants to our program from the event. Once I had a group of schools that I had organized, or institutions I had organized together, I was then able to excite my internal stakeholders within my institution on why they should participate with me in this sort of inaugural and, you know, new territory event. So when you put together a group fair or a single fair, you want to build a cohesive team. When I reached out to my BioGap colleagues, I knew I was getting a cohesive team in terms of institutions around the country. When I reached out internally, I wanted a cohesive team that gave a depth and breadth of perspectives from my institution and the programs, services, and benefits that we offer. So I invited different people from our International Services Office. I invited faculty and deans. I even invited several of our students to participate as well. And it really allowed for the candidates who came into our chat room to get many different perspectives and a lot more information on the programs and benefits of coming to our institution versus if I tried to answer all of those questions as the recruiter myself. So when preparing for our first virtual fair and the subsequent fairs, there's some things that you want to do that I have learned over the years. The first thing that you're going to want to do is prepare your team. And you're going to want your vendor to be able to provide you with some of that material. And, you know, I can't tell you what other vendors do, but I can tell you that what CareerEco provides is a video and PDF of sort of how to do the chat experience, how to log in, things, how to set up your username even. So they really give you some excellent guidance on how to that makes it really, really easy for you and your team to execute this. You want to do a practice session with your vendor if you can to make sure that everything works with your institution's network and things like that. And then you also want to provide some chat hints that perhaps your vendor can give you from their expertise, because the vendor's in a unique position that they work with 20,000 of these fairs a year or whatever, and you perhaps only participate in 4. And then there's some training that you're going to want to provide too, because even though these tools are really easy to use, and a lot of the training and videos and things like that you get on how to are super easy to get through, you are probably working in a multi-generational workplace where everyone has a different comfort level and skill level with technology. So providing some common tips and training is extremely helpful. It doesn't have to be much longer than a 30-minute meeting. You may want to come up with a list of chat room best practices, particularly for people who have never participated in a chat room experience before. If you're going to have multiple people from your institution participating, then you're going to want to possibly have a moderator. And the moderator can sort of direct questions from the students to the most appropriate person within the room as the candidates come in and ask those questions. You're also going to want to have a FAQ sheet for them with frequently asked questions about your graduate programs, the benefits that you offer, your application deadline, etc. Because especially if you engage people who aren't on the front lines of recruitment all the time, they're going to feel very nervous answering these questions when they don't have the expertise level that you have. So providing them with, a Word document cheat sheet where they can cut and paste that information, or even in a system like the one that we use through CareerEco, you can actually store those messages in the chat room so that you can select through them as you respond. That can be extremely helpful in empowering your staff and making them feel extremely comfortable in participating in something new like this. And then, of course, you want to provide them with some resources on who to call if there's a question that they don't know the answer to, or how to respond even to a question they don't know the answer to, just to make sure that they feel comfortable knowing that they can say, hey, I don't know the answer to that, let me look into that for you. And then, of course, you're going to want to do some email follow-ups with your team and reminders, because particularly if you have really busy people like deans and faculty participating in the event, their schedule pulls them in 25 different directions at any time, and they're going to need those reminders. And finally, you're going to want to make sure that your entire team tests their readiness. Make sure your vendor provides some sort of practice session. CareerEco literally sends you a how-to video where you can log in yourself and practice yourself. And so make sure that you get confirmation from your team members that they have done a practice session and they know how everything works. That way, the day of the fair, you're aware of who has not practiced so that you're prepared to jump in and help them as needed. So not only are you going to want to organize a really strong team, both in terms of institutions, but in terms of your internal staff, but you're going to want to market your events. CareerEco provides some excellent resources. Again, I can't speak to what other vendors provide, but CareerEco provided us with HTML emails that we could use for advertising purposes, flyers that we could even take with us to conferences for cross-marketing, web banners that we used on our website, but then we also put on public websites too in terms of paid advertising, and event reminders to not only the different institutions participating, to you and your team, but also to the registrants of the fair. That's super important. And what's nice is for us is that not only did CareerEco organize those things, but they actually give us the ability to message the candidates through their system in advance of the fair. So I could go into the system and see everyone who is registered and invite either everyone or the candidates that I was most interested in speaking with to my Baylor College of Medicine chat room in advance of the fair. Because it's always nice to sort of hear from a recruiter who says, hey, I'm really interested in you, saw your CV, would love to chat with you in the chat room. So that helped drive traffic to my chat room as well. Group resources are really beneficial as well. Go ahead and put that collaborative event or your event out on a public calendar, like your National Professional Association, NAGAP, your chapter calendars. All of those places are great places to advertise the virtual fair more. To do paid banner ads, I mentioned that we did one on gradschools.com. And then marketing best practices. This was something that I had put together and sort of sent out to all of the other schools. It's information that everybody knows. Like, everybody knows how to market your program, but when you are in the thick of it and you are trying to shoot out some marketing information, at the same time you're trying to deal with 25 other things, you may not remember everything. So having a group list of marketing best practices that everybody can share and refer to on a regular basis as you market the event is super helpful. Here's an example of the tools that we had used. This is on the left, that biggest square there is the most recent HTML email advertisement for the Biomed Graduate Fair, virtual graduate fair. And one thing that you'll notice is they have 3 separate dates down there. They did a summer fair for the first time this year to sort of piggyback off of their summer programs that they host, in an effort to not only engage those students in their graduate school research, but also to be able to assist them in their graduate school research, which is something I think many of those institutions are planning to report in their funding progress reports and grant applications. And then, of course, they have their September fair and their October fair as well. Those are there so that they can hit different points during their application cycle. And that's a trend that a lot of the fairs that Gayle and CareerEco work on have been embracing. Being able to do multiple fairs throughout the year so you hit different points during your application cycle is trending towards a larger ROI or return on investment for those schools, rather than if you just did one fair a year and tried to force everybody into one date and time. The larger banner there, that was the gradschools.com banner that CareerEco created for us, and the smaller banner down in the bottom represents the banner that you can put on your website that, again, CareerEco created for our Biomed Virtual Fair. So marketing your school is really, really important. Tailoring the message of the virtual fair to your existing networks and pipelines is going to drive a bulk of your chat room traffic to your chat room the day of the fair. And there are all sorts of outlets that you probably have at your institution and networks. These are just several of the outlets and networks that we used when I was working at Baylor College of Medicine, and that I use regularly when I work with my clients around the country to make sure that they're getting the word that they are participating in this innovative event, this really easy way for candidates to connect with their institution and get their questions answered. And so your marketing department can be insanely helpful in putting some of this together, especially with beautiful graphics and things like that. Your alumni office will engage your alumni. Your career services office can be helpful not only with your alumni, but with engaging students as well. And then, of course, you have your graduate school, and you're going to want to tap into those pipelines that you have, those undergrad advisors, that potential student pipeline that you already connected with at some point. This is just another touch point. And any paid targeted outreach lists, such as the GRE search list, utilizing your current students to post it on their social media pages, your summer students, your interns, and of course, offering a giveaway or a raffle is always a great way to ensure that people come to your chat room, just like you use a giveaway or raffle when you work a regular recruitment booth at a traditional recruitment fair. So during the event, you can ask people to share information about the fair, invite candidates to future events, and then after the event, you really want to make sure that you do your follow-up. You want to follow up with every single registrant from that virtual fair. not just the people who came to your chat room. Because the reality is, the larger the fair, the harder it's going to be for some of the students to get to every single chat room. The nice thing about CareerEco's platform is that the candidates who participate in our fairs can actually be in 3 rooms at once, so it's really flexible for the student and allows them to visit as many as possible. But you really want to connect with all registrants, particularly because all registrants won't actually make it to the fair that day. Sometimes maybe they had, a family illness come up or something like that. So sending your program's message out to everyone is insanely important. Also, the individual follow-up with those key prospects you met in your chat room. You get the list of the people who came into your chat room. Don't ignore that. Follow up with them, not just the people you remember off the top of your head. Go back to that discussion transcript and remember those conversations that you had and have those individual follow-ups with people. And then finally, right before your application deadline, you're going to want to do an email blast to all registrants again, just reminding them of your application deadline. So this is some of the outcomes data that we have from the Biomed Virtual Fair. We've been really lucky that several of the schools participating have shared. On the left, in the far left column, you'll see the institution, Baylor College of Medicine, followed by Roswell Park Cancer Institute, followed by University of Minnesota, and Washington University in St. Louis. The years we've held the fairs, followed by the total number of applicants each year, followed by the total number of virtual fair participants who came into our chat rooms, the virtual fair participants who actually applied that year, who were interviewed, and then accepted, and then enrolled. And there are a couple things that I would like to point out here. First, BCM's, Baylor College of Medicine's 2012 and 2013 data reflects when I was there working the virtual fair, and the strategies that I've shared with you today are the strategies that I utilized for those returns. Also, you may notice that the total number of applicants for each institution has pretty much gone down each year. And I'm not sure if you heard about that little NIH funding gap that the biomedical sciences experienced over the past few years, but I assume that has attributed to our decline in numbers there. But what's really important to look at is the enrollment numbers. Even though there was a decline in applications, the enrollment numbers have remained steady or increased for the majority of institutions. And if you look at University of Minnesota and WashU St. Louis, that is a great example of consistency. If you look at Roswell Park Cancer Institute, you'll notice they didn't even have a return in terms of enrollment the first 2 years. And I've actually spoken with Norm Karen, who works there, and he told me that he continued to participate in the Biomed Virtual Fair without an enrollment number because he thought that the branding that he was getting and the outreach that he was getting from the event is what was powerful for his institution. Typically, they're a regional recruitment process, and through the virtual fair, he was actually able to expand his reach to a nationwide reach and connect with candidates and applicants who he was never able to connect with before. And ultimately, making it a long-term part of his strategy has started to allow him to see a return in terms of enrollment with the most recent fair. So I think that hopefully gives you an idea of the power of working with other institutions, and then as an individual institution, how you can also maximize your return on your investment if you decide to participate in these virtual recruitment events. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Gayle so that she can quickly share some details with you regarding the upcoming recruitment fairs through NAGAP.
Thanks so much, Holly. I just want to appreciate so much the content that you've offered up to give the schools here more details. And Kevin, both of you have given so much, I think, of the the depth of what you can do with the virtual fairs, and we're very, very proud to be associated with NAGAP and doing some of the future fairs. And the two that we wanted to just share today quickly, and then I want to make sure we leave plenty of time for the questions because I believe there's some that have come through. The education fair you'll see is going to be hosted in the fall on October 14th. And what you'll know, if you ever want to go visit the site anytime, you can go to the CareerEco.com website and you'll see there's that virtual fairs up in the navigation bar. If you click on upcoming fairs, you'll see a listing and you'll find this particular fair that's really focused on helping those that might want to go and get an advanced degree in the area of education. So we're really, really excited. We know there's lots of need for that, for these applicants that will be going on to get a master's or a PhD around this whole education discipline. So we're thrilled to be able to offer that to you in the upcoming fall season. Holly, if you'll go to the next, please. The other is the engineering grad school fair, and of course lots of engineering programs out there that would benefit from coming together, very much like Holly explained, the idea of bringing peers together and making yourselves available in a very on-demand format is really valuable for all the participants, because obviously if I'm a candidate considering going to any of these kinds of schools, then the ability for me to actually engage with many of you at the same time is going to be a very, very compelling reason for me to go ahead and get registered, and then ultimately all of you as schools will have the ability to potentially connect with them in this format. If you want to see more about the pricing, you'll notice that it's on the website. There's a Learn More button. You can always go to that, and that'll give you some more details. I'll show you just in a minute, just to give you a high level of what you could expect. But what you're going to notice is that when the candidates go to the site, they're going to be able to click on a Learn More button, and when they do that, there'll be a listing of all the programs that are in that particular event. So as they mentioned earlier, you have the ability to really showcase what's important and what the differentiators are about your program. You'll be listed here as one of the participating institutions, and then you'll notice there's several columns. When the visitor links on your name, it'll take them right to your profile page, which I'll show you an example of here in just a minute. But you'll also notice that they can see at a high level the kinds of programs that you're offering and the kinds of degrees that you confer. That little check mark there, that circle, will also give them the ability to indicate their interest in you, and that was referred to earlier as well. And so just bear in mind, they can see a listing of all those schools, and if they want to call out to you as an institution, hey, I'm really interested in you, they'll check mark that, and then you'll have access to that data for future follow-up. So if you look at the example of a profile page in the next screenshot, you're going to notice these are very multimedia in terms of what you can share. The one thing that's great about these profile pages that we found is that there's so much content on your sites. They're wonderful. They're full of great information. What your profile page does, it gives you an ability to distill down some of the key messaging that you want to make sure that people know. And so you can personalize it with your logo. You can see there's a section there at the top where you can include images that personalize it. And then you'll notice down below there's an area where you can give descriptions, you can have links back to your website, you can have information about faculty, you can have, as you see, an example of a video embedded, any kind of images, and you'll see some schools will put lots and lots of effort around these, and they can really be a wonderful way, again, to really distill down some of the key messaging that you know that out of all the great content you have on your site are some of the key drivers of information that will then give them good ideas of how they want to come into the chat room to ask you more questions. And then, of course, you'll have links back to your social media and so forth as well. Leading up to the event, everyone's going to get to choose their own chat hours. That's, of course, part of the flexibility that people like so much about virtual. And what you'll just notice in this example is that you can have different time blocks. So maybe you can't be there all day, and you literally have to break out time blocks where you and your team are going to be there. If you can be there from morning till night, we'll have plenty of people that will literally be there from 8 a.m. until 9 or 10 p.m., and they may have the coverage to do that. Others will just be there during certain segments. And they may even, as you notice by that first entry, they have a group there that's specifically talking about admissions, but then they call out some time blocks that let you know when their students are going to be there and their financial aid, and then consequently some faculty as well. So you can just keep in mind that, you know, you can have one person that's there for a long period of time, or you can have multiple people that are there throughout the course of your segment. So very, very flexible in that regard. And once again, what's so wonderful about virtual is the ability to be there and have people collaborate with you in this whole recruiting aspect, but they could be located wherever they may be, where they have an internet connection and a device to log in and really help you with that, which comes in really handy with the faculty. And then quickly here, I'll just show you, that's an example of the dashboard where you'll have access to all those candidates. It's just really important to know that you want to know that you can follow up beyond the event, and there's lots of ways to segment and partition off your information there by liked and maybe the favorites that you chatted with, or again seeing the ones that are interested in you, but just know this will be exportable out of the system as well. Holly, next, please. Yeah. And then there is that ability to communicate within the system if you want to do that. So being proactive, we've heard from the others, great way for you to really drive people into your room. That's just a built-in feature that you can use if you choose, or certainly you can send them emails from your own tool. Next, Holly, please. And I'll just show you quickly an example of the chat so you'll know, very navigation friendly from everything we hear, but you'll notice that there are going to be a couple of different ways to engage. So whether you're using those room greetings that you've thought out, whether you're using the stored messages, all of that's built into the system. But if you go to the next screenshot, Holly, I'll show you an example of the different ways to interact. So if you think about it in terms of, there's group questions, obviously people have questions that everybody benefits from the answers. So you can do that when you type into that upper part where you have the gray bar there. You can type your answers into that. When people ask questions in the room, multiple people that are in your room ask questions, and you can engage with them in that group format. Everybody's going to benefit from the Q&A that's happening there. At the same time, you may want to really, really personalize it, and as you do that, you can toggle back and forth between your private chats and do that in a way that really makes them feel special, that you really are very much concerned about their own individual questions, and everybody's going to handle that segment differently. But some of you, the brave amongst you, will actually use the video, and there's a couple ways you can do that. So if you look at this example, maybe I want to have a one-to-one and delve in deeper with a prospect that I absolutely know isn't going to be able to make it to campus, but they really want to see me and I want to see them. You could do that right here in this sort of format. But you may also want to even broadcast the room, and I'll share my favorite story about that, where we had a professor that got on and was really enthusiastic, particularly within a PT program, and they were so excited. They had their laptop and they were video broadcasting right in the room, so they couldn't see the visitors, but the visitors could see her. She was so excited about it all that she started carrying her laptop around and showing the Sims lab, her Sims lab, and showing some of the things that she was all excited about. So again, you don't have to use the multimedia tools, but just know that if you want to, they're there, and it's just going to be up to each group to determine how they want to best utilize this sort of engagement. And then next, you'll see that there's just the takeaways, obviously part of what you can extract, which have been mentioned, but the chat transcripts, being able to really see the documented discussions that happened and know who visited your room and be able to extract all that data out of the system so that you can follow up with them beyond the event is also very, very important from standpoint of ROI. And next, Holly. Just as a round out, you'll notice, again, there's going to be more pricing details and more the deadlines and so forth. They'll be all on the event sites that NAGAP is partnering on with these two, the Engineering Grad School Fair and the Education Grad School Fair, that both of those are happening there in mid-October. But you'll just notice there's a benefit for the NAGAP members. So you'll have an early fee that's below the typical fee. But you'll just notice in general from the fee structure that these are all basically somewhere between that, low 200s up to $450 generally $400 if you want to be a regular participating school, and then certainly if you want to have some extra branding, there's some visibility that you can get through some other different options around website sponsorship or event sponsorship. But what's most important, I think, is that we've tried to keep it affordable for you. So certainly, again, if you want more details about what's included, all of what I've shared recently here in the last few minutes is included, but if you have more questions about how it works and all of that, we're certainly available. But I think, you know, they wanted to make sure that you understood just a little bit about how that particular event works, and hopefully what I think is most important, and if you want to advance to the final screen, I think what's most important is that regardless of whether we're fortunate enough to work with you on any virtual event, what's really, I think, very, very powerful around these events is that it really is helping people transform the way they do their recruitment. And so we're so excited to be seeing the kinds of outcomes and seeing how much branding and how much power in the decision process. And we regularly do all kinds of surveys as well, and get a lot of feedback from the applicants that for them this is tremendous in terms of their ability to really engage with you. And they, again, because they're digital natives, it's so natural for them, but it really makes a decision on where they're going to go to school. It's part of their due diligence or maybe part of their final decision making, and they're so grateful for it. So like Kevin said, I think it's a win-win on all fronts, and again, we're just really proud to be part of some of these NAGAP events, and certainly am thrilled to hear that the recruitment strategies are really benefiting, and the schools and the institutions are benefiting from using technologies to really help them accomplish their goals. So Monica, back to you.
Great. Well, thank you all to the group for an excellent and informative presentation today. We do have a few questions here on the line, so I'll throw those out to the group. It looks like we're a couple minutes past, but we'll go ahead and go through a couple of those, and since we have a good amount of attendees still on the line, and then we can follow up if we need to on the rest if we don't get to them. One clarifier just before we start in on questions, there was a conflict of dates on the slides with the education fair between October 15th and 14th. So I wanted to confirm that, and also confirm that we'll be sending out some more details through NAGAP to the membership regarding signing up for those events and putting those on the website as well. So more to come on those, but can you confirm which date the education fair was, Gayle?
Absolutely, and I apologize for the discrepancy on the information, but the engineering fair is going to be on the 14th, and the education fair is on the 15th.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a few questions here. One that came in that I think would be good that you didn't cover specifically is about the international student market, whether CareerEco has been able to tap that market and to what degree, or have you had technical difficulties with students in other countries with high censorship, that kind of thing. Maybe if any of you could touch on that.
Well, I'll take that one first up to say we have a tremendous number of international students that attend the fairs. You know, because these fairs are hosted by different partners, not every fair is the same where there's as much of a reach, but I will tell you that we've had so many events where there was great international presence, and it becomes an immense value for those, because obviously with them being on different time zones and in different continents around the world, and we've literally had people participate from all over the world, it's an amazing benefit for them, and we regularly get feedback from them on how grateful they are to be able to participate. So I think you'll find that that is a really fantastic way to reach international students as well.
Great. Here's sort of a question that looks at this a little differently. Have you worked with any schools or know of certain types of programs where maybe the virtual fairs have not been effective or have not been as successful as some of the virtual fairs you worked with that have been?
Well, I think, it's important to know that around any of these virtual events, there's always going to be a tremendous amount of variation around the levels of participation. So in some cases, you have host schools that'll come together to say, we want you to reach our students. And in that scenario, then part of the marketing strategy that Holly was really sharing doesn't apply as much. So you don't have as much control over helping drive people into that event because it's exclusive to a group of schools that are really push marketing it. The other point is that one of the reasons that we decided to do the two niche events here in the fall is because obviously when you have a group of schools coming together that are of a similar nature, then there's going to be a certain amount of attraction to that for those kinds of students. So if you're in a more general fair, then it's, you can't guarantee that in that kind of event that all the registrants, even if there are 500 or 1,000 registrants, you can't guarantee that all those registrants are necessarily interested in that type of school. And that's, one of the benefits of these, I call them niche or specialized special interest type groups, is that you do have the power around the fact that most of those candidates are really going to be very seriously considering that particular type of school. So I think it depends on the type of event you're in, and certainly there's some variables that we don't have control over, but I think in general terms, I think it's important to know that it's, beyond just the number of interactions as well, you're getting a tremendous amount of branding. And I know that that's something that most schools are also very concerned about, which is why they advertise and get exposure to a whole myriad of different prospects through different marketing channels. So I think you also have to look at that as part of that as well.
Great. Here's a fairly specific question, and this may sort of go back to what you were speaking to about specifics and really finding what works for you, but have you found a time of day that works best for, or day of the week that works best for virtual fairs?
Well, I have to say we have tended to schedule our events on Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and I don't know that I have a very specific time frame that I see as being ideal, except to say that the heaviest traffic in any events that we've ever hosted will naturally fall somewhere between that 10 and 3. And so if you start very early, you're going to get maybe some of the early birds, and if you stay late, we have one school that participates regularly, and in fact, we saw her at NAGAP, and she was saying, remember me? I'm the one that's always on at 10 o'clock at night. And, and she said, sometimes, we don't have near as many visitors at that hour, but when they come by, they're usually extremely interested and very engaged. And she said, sometimes I literally have to say, okay, it's time for me to log off. I've got to go finally. So, I think you're going to see a natural, because so many of the schools in any event will naturally fall where they at least have some coverage between that mid-morning until that early afternoon segment. That's where the natural traffic flow will end up being. But maybe, Kevin, do you have any insights into your favorite time blocks?
We try and do blocks that are around the common lunch hours across time zones. So the other nice thing about the way the vendor has it set up is you can see when other schools have set their hours too, as long as they've already done it. And you can select hours that partially overlap or fully overlap with those. Again, the idea that the more schools that are present, that's when the traffic is going to be higher, because the registrants can all see that as well. And so just by nature, schools are going to be more prone to being online at certain points of the day. We always pick around the lunchtime. We haven't gone to evening, but I would totally see the value in it too, especially like if you want to have current students on during the evening, when prospective applicants can interact with current students at a time when they are available too. So you have a lot of flexibility. It's really just up to the resources that you have and how you want to pick your hours.
Oh, that's great, Kevin. Thank you.
Great. We have a couple that are more specific, and so I think we can answer those offline. But Is there any parting words that you'd like to say before we wrap up here? Since we're 10 after, I'd like to just be mindful of our time, and we can just respond to a couple of the remaining questions offline.
I just would like to say thank you again, Monica, for allowing us to share a bit more. And just from CareerEco's point of view, thank you for the shout out from Kevin and Holly, certainly. But I do want to just reiterate, whether we're fortunate enough to work with you or not, we fundamentally believe that this is part of the future and the value around everybody leveraging their time and resources. So we really encourage you to dig deeper into the whole concept of virtual events.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time and for the presentation again. Again, we'll be posting the link, the handouts, and any remaining questions on the website shortly. You'll also receive a link for an evaluation from the webinar today. So we ask that you fill that out for us so we can continue to provide relevant topics and make sure that you get the most out of the events that you're attending on NAGAP's behalf. So with that, we thank you for your time today, and hope we'll see you again at another NAGAP event.